Welcome to today's First Chesapeake chat session. I am Akshita Ramesh, a student in First Chesapeake, and I'm here to introduce the First Chesapeake Chats, sponsored by Newport News Shipbuilding. I would like to thank this session's sponsor, Northrop Grumman, for making this chat possible. Just some housekeeping, we will let the speakers present and then open up for discussion questions later on if there is time, but feel free to put questions in the comments throughout the chat and we will try to get to them all. The session today is Cool Jobs, discussion with Joe Striedl, Director Global Supply, Northrop Grumman Aeronautics Systems, and I will now pass it over to our speaker, Joe Striedl, to introduce themselves.
Sure. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you. I appreciate the opportunity to come out here and share with you a little bit of my passion for what I've been doing over the last 22, 23 years almost here. Currently, as she mentioned, Director of Global Supply Chain out of our Aeronautics Systems division, actually based out of Redondo Beach, California. And I just took that job 2 months ago, as a matter of fact, having an opportunity to expand the horizons for being on the East Coast for the most of my career here. Backgrounds in mechanical engineering, and I've been volunteering with FIRST going all the way back to 2009 season with Lunacy. So good to be here.
That's honestly awesome. Thank you so much for doing this today. And I have a bunch of questions. So first off, being a program manager sounds really cool, but what exactly does it entail? Could you describe your current work position?
Sure. Well, from program management is whether it's global supply chain program management or we just have standard, straight up overall program managers responsible for a portfolio of products. You're really responsible for everything as it relates to bringing the material in-house, getting it to the manufacturing floor from a global supply chain perspective. You're basically interfacing the first line with our customers, ensuring that when there's a problem in-house or at a supplier, you're responsible for ensuring the right people are tackling the right problems and basically making progress and moving the product forward. So
that's extremely awesome. So what led you to joining Northrop Grumman?
The funny thing is, it was really, I went to college. When I graduated high school, I wanted to be in the FBI. My father was a police officer, and strong family ties to the police departments, and wanted to pursue a career in the FBI. But in order to do that, you needed a degree. Didn't want to go get a criminal justice degree. I felt that was a little bit too easy in a sense, and wanted another way to set myself apart. So went down the mechanical engineering route, and after had an opportunity to my senior year, heard a couple of presentations by some folk, Northrop engineers out in Bethpage, Long Island, and that really got the spark to saying, hey, this is a pretty cool company and one I want to go work for. And that was way back in August of '97, and I've been down here at our Baltimore facilities for ever since, up until 2 months ago, and transferred over to our California facility.
How was studying mechanical engineering in college?
It was very interesting. I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed the science, the chemistry, the physics, the statics and dynamics, the technical aspects of it. It really gave me an opportunity to do what I really liked and develop a passion for solving problems and getting, finding the tools and the resources that you need to solve a lot of today's complex problems.
Engineering, honestly, like just being a first student, it's been one of the things that's just really important to me. And honestly, it's also really shaped the way I really want to enter college. So it's always awesome to see someone else who's already been through college as an engineer and knows what it's like. Mm-hmm. And what led you to joining FIRST as a volunteer?
I guess it was an internal call for volunteers way back in 2008 timeframe. They were looking for some volunteer judges, and I didn't really know much about FIRST other than the robot aspect of it. And there was always an affinity towards that. At the time there was battle bots were on TV, and they were doing all these sort of robot type things, and I felt that it was a way in which I can give back and enjoy being around the technology and the concepts of what it was from a robotic standpoint. And it really was just, the moment that I got there, I think the first competition that I was at was down at the Naval Academy. Walked in there during the competition day, and I was just kind of blown away by the enthusiasm, the spirit, and the passion that the kids and the mentors and the volunteers showed. I'd say I drank the Kool-Aid, and I've been doing it 9 out of the last 11 years.
That's extremely cool. So, also, how is the experience of judging and being a judge's advisor?
Judging is a very interesting position. In a sense, there's a sense of professionalism that comes along with it. There's a sense of responsibility that you're an ambassador. In addition to judging, you're also an ambassador of the program. Really trying to put forth out there and engage with the students to be able to give away all these great awards. And that to me is more rewarding personally when you're talking with the students, you're talking with the mentors and whatnot about all the good things that they're doing, not just to benefit the robot, but to benefit their community and the folks around them. I've last few years that I've judged, I've been doing Chairman's Award, and it blows my mind away again to see all the good things that these teams are doing. I mean, the Garrett County teams and all the teams out in Appalachia, they're doing so much to get the word out, not just for the STEM aspect of it, but even just leadership principles and concepts.
And were you a FIRST alum? And if not, would you have participated in FIRST as a youth? And if you would have, which program or aspect would you have been interested in?
I really wish I had the opportunity to take advantage of FIRST. I want to say that it was probably around back in the early 90s when I was in school, but wasn't at my school. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate in it. Notwithstanding, if I had the opportunity, certainly FRC would have been to me the golden ticket. And that's kind of when I go to competitions now, and I do tend to live vicariously through a lot of the students and that I see on the teams, and that scratches the itch for the time being.
And I can also attest, FRC is extremely fun. I'm also an FRC student myself, and I enjoyed it just so much. Like you can see from my volunteer shirt. And how many years have you volunteered with FIRST?
I got the original lunacy. So 9 out of the last 11. I took 2 years off. Had some other stuff going on that took my time away. But I tell you, it's the whole thing about FIRST is, and really what's blown me away is the fact that it's more than just a robot. It is a lot about what these teams do for the community and for the students themselves. Really to build leadership skills. The fact that it is like running a business, and to me that's one key area that I think more the students today could really benefit from is not just the technical side.
When you entered volunteering for FIRST and getting involved with other teams, how big of a part did you think that non-technical would be?
In the beginning, I really wasn't quite sure. I think it was more, the understanding, trying to get an understanding of what the teams are doing, how they're running themselves, how do they keep sustaining themselves, and when you look at the fundraising, the community outreach, the networking, the marketing, everything under the sun, team spirit is really plays a lot to the soft skills for what it takes to be successful in a world like today.
And how much has being involved with all these teams, like how much has a non-technical aspect impacted you as a person?
Well, I'll tell you, every time I walk into an event, I always feel like there's always something going on in the world today, and it's like doom and gloom and woe is the world, and then I see everything, all the students and the excitement and enthusiasm, and it kind of it warms me over knowing that that our future's in good hands with a lot of the first alumni students, because you all are doing great things, and it's going to benefit you down the road, whether whether you realize it or not. It'll come back, and you'll kind of look back on it and say, hey, that this really did help me out, and we're having a lot of fun at it, no less.
And from your experience of working with many different first teams, what would you say is something similar or different about all these teams?
Uh, Similar, I would say, is again, at least for a lot of the teams that I've interviewed with from the chairman's standpoint, it really comes down to making a difference, not just for you as an individual, for your family unit, for your school, but for your community and for the region and the world, for that matter. I had an opportunity last year to get over to Dubai for the first global challenge, and that was eye opening on the sense that everything that I saw, even under regions here, was very much at play on a global stage, and that is, to me, is the enthusiasm and the similarities. The concept of cooperation is, on a lot of levels, we tend to lose sight of when you're actually out in industry working, because it's a matter of you're competing, and you have companies that are selling the same products that you, and why is your product better, but yet you're competing, and in some cases there's programs where we're working together. So there's a lot of similarities along those lines, and the differences just come in more nuance to the team, or to the specific endeavors that the teams choose to pursue and highlight and benefit themselves.
And how many FIRST programs have you been involved with?
FRC was really, I think, FRC primarily over the number of years. I guess the first global was more at FTC scale, but that's about it. I've early on, I had some conversations with Jamie Gerganis on the first Lego League side. Was able to at least get a chance to see some of those competitions, but never did much volunteering work for them.
If you could volunteer any volunteer position at any level of FIRST, which one would it be?
I'm gonna still go with the judging. I appreciate on some level you get a lot more. To me, there's a lot more exposure to the students. There is some benefit and aspects of being an ambassador. Talking up the first, what first means, the vision, the mission, and to me, I think I resonate with that a lot. So.
And have you ever, while working with FIRST Global, have you ever had the chance to meet Dean Kamen or Dr. Woody Flowers?
So actually, I did see Dean last October in Dubai, and then I had seen Dr. Woody Flowers. He came to the Baltimore competition a number of years ago, and I think we were down at the convention center, and I met him then, and was able to get a little photo opportunity with him.
That sounds awesome. And what is your inspiration for helping FIRST students and volunteering at all these competitions for this many years?
I think it comes down to wanting to leave the place better than you found it. And to me, it's, helping to inspire others through either sharing stories of overcoming adversity, or rising to meet the challenge head on. It's more about communicating and sharing and demonstrating the fact that you can achieve something out of nothing, and you can do a lot of things that you thought would be impossible, and that's kind of where continuing to keep the students involved and work with them, and is really what drives me, is knowing that tomorrow they'll be the ones running around leading these businesses, and potentially leading governments, and that's that lets me sleep better at night.
And now we can change. I want to try to change up the topic to your work. What has been a challenge that you've had to work with in the workplace?
There's maybe too many to try and come up with any one. I think a lot of levels, whether it's suppliers not performing, or receiving bad quality material and having to get to the bottom of understanding why did it come in like that, what happened, what are we going to do differently. It really comes down to the approach that you take to solve problems, and really how do you drive to in a lot of cases, from a real world standpoint, these problems tend to be pretty big, and one person can't really solve them all. I kind of ask myself, the old question of how do you eat an elephant, and typically it's just one bite at a time, and that plays very well to how do you solve the difficult challenges that you encounter every day. It's just boiling the big problems down to small problems, and then tackling the small problems. But things I've encountered, as I said, they range from poor quality material to somebody not showing up for the day, or you look at what we've experienced in the last 2 months with COVID, and how people aren't coming to work. So how do you work through that? It runs the gamut.
And how has your company tried to keep going through COVID-19?
Well, I think a lot of it plays to the fact that we are an essential employer, and we go to work every day, not just to push papers and build things, but we go to work every day to be able to provide our products to the warfighter, and it plays to the whys behind why we go to work every day, knowing that the products that we deliver are giving ourselves and our allies a competitive advantage, and so we can bring the warfighter home safely, and that's pretty much what keeps everybody coming to work.
That sounds amazing and extremely inspirational. And throughout your time at Northrop Grumman, how has the company evolved since you started working there? And when did you start working there?
It's evolved a lot. I started here at our BWI facility back in August of '97. And it was the original, matter of fact, I joined a year after Northrop bought the facility. That used to be the old Westinghouse facility. And so coming into Northrop Grumman, working for the electronic systems sector. And I'd say over the years it's grown. We've grown to have upwards of probably 5,000 or 6,000 people in that facility over the years. We've evolved from electronic systems to mission systems a number of years ago, and through a couple of acquisitions and rebranding, and now most recently with our orbital ATK acquisition, we've now re-architected into a number of some new different sectors, and that gave me an opportunity to go over and take advantage of working for our aeronautics sector, doing a lot more of the airborne platforms, specifically F-35 program.
That sounds extremely cool. Honestly, I really love hearing about like cool engineering things going on in the world. It's definitely awesome to see that STEM is really just still growing, and it really never stops evolving. Mm-hmm. And how has being involved with FIRST helped you out in the workplace environment, or vice versa?
I think being involved with FIRST plays to more the networking abilities, and developing connections and contacts with individuals who you don't normally interact with on a daily basis, where you'll see a lot of these individuals for a couple days a year, and then you won't see them again for another year. And I think part of that is it plays to I'd say a sense of helping them out, and just being able to be comfortable around new people, and learning to be comfortable around new people, for that matter.
And going back to the question I asked you before, you mentioned that you were involved in electronics first when you joined Northrop Grumman. Mm-hmm. And how similar would that be to FRC electronics? I'm personally a student on the electronics sub-team, on my FRC sub-team, and I've had a lot of fun there.
Well, there are a lot of similarities. The electronic systems, as we know it today, it really evolves more to we deal a lot in radars and RF electronics. So, depending upon the wavelengths, you could be talking about electronic parts fairly large in nature, and all the way down to higher frequency parts where it's like specks of pepper that are placed by a machine, like microelectronic circuits and whatnot. So I think electronics is, it's more, there's different technologies that we work with. Some are surface mount, some are through hole. A lot of it is more integration, circuit board integration and sub-assembly integration work.
And what advice would you give to college students who want to go into mechanical engineering?
I highly encourage it. Mechanical engineering, I haven't actually done mechanical engineering for probably about 18, 19 years now. Mechanical engineering, I felt it was at the time best suited to provide enough knowledge about a lot of different aspects to where there wasn't many conversations that I've been a part of over the years that I didn't feel comfortable with, or didn't feel like I was that much of a fish out of water. Mechanical engineering, you get some exposure into electrical engineering, you get some exposure into civil engineering, as well as the various other platforms. And so I really felt that mechanical was a pretty broad brush introduction to really problem solving on a bigger scale.
And continuing with advice for college students, what would you encourage for college students who want to maybe be a judge or a judge's advisor after college or during college, or also maybe even just volunteering in FIRST in general?
I truly believe in the concept of philanthropy and giving back, and really the fact that if you're in college today, continue to focus on excelling, not just in the academics, but also on the extracurriculars. I think what you find is the good judges have a diverse background and set of experiences. And I think that's, to me, that's the big thing that I look for is, in judges, and it's kind of, what does a person bring to the table? What more can they add to the team that we don't already have? To me, the more diverse the experience set, the more valuable of a team player that you end up being.
And I've asked you a bunch of questions about college, but what college did you actually go to, and about your education, and how far did you go in your education in general?
So I went my undergraduate. I did little school, New Jersey Institute of Technology, up in Newark, New Jersey, and I got my bachelor's degree there. Came down to work right out of bachelor's program, and then I was able to get the company to pay for a master's degree with when I went to Johns Hopkins University as a master's in business administration. And that's probably one of the key things that maybe not many people realize is that, getting a full-time job, most large companies do have some tuition reimbursement programs to where, you don't have to worry about footing the cost for the entire master's or doctoral programs. You might find that your companies are willing to pay for some of that, if not all of it.
Was it tough to kind of deal with having work and also trying to get your master's degree at the same time?
Not really. I think, at the end of the day, there's a lot of programs are self-paced as well, and you're taking one or two night classes a semester, and you can pretty much get it done in 2 to 3 years. And I know at least from my experiences, my employer, my bosses, they were supportive of it, and they certainly encouraged it as well. So it kind of makes it worthwhile to put in the time and the effort. And sure, there are long days and long nights sometimes, but it just comes with the territory.
Did you take any classes in high school that related to mechanical engineering or just engineering in general?
I think you're looking at probably the physics and the sciences. That's really where you want to focus on there, and even math. I mean, even I'd say advanced math principles, calculus, would benefit you from an engineering standpoint. So, yep.
And lastly, I'm going to turn it back over to First. How many competitions have you judged, and in which locations? And if you've judged at many different locations, how does each experience differ from the others?
So I think from a location standpoint, we've been going all the way back to Lunacy. Has been the Naval Academy a couple times, and we're at the Convention Center, Baltimore Convention Center, and then we moved down to, I think, Comcast Center. Been primarily in the DC region, and up until last October, where I went over to Dubai and was judging the first Global Challenge, a couple of their awards. Each area, each venue has its differences, and each experience is different. But at the end of the day, it's always looking back on the networks, the people you get to meet, and the good things you hear that each of the programs are doing. That kind of, again, let me come home and say, hey, you know what? I think we're doing the right thing here. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate. A lot of it is kind of I do this because it's self-rewarding. It's it's an opportunity for me to give back and provide experiences that I didn't necessarily have when I was growing up, and that's it's what keeps me going. And now that I'm going to be relocating out into the Los Angeles area, I'm going to be for certain looking to engage with some of the first teams out there and the first programs out there.
Thank you so much for just sharing everything, or sharing all your information. I found it really interesting and super inspirational. I thank you for just spending your time to volunteer for First and letting these competitions and all that stuff actually happen for me and a lot of other First kids. As well as letting the rest of the volunteers volunteer and helping make First Chesapeake a huge, amazing thing.
Absolutely.
I would like to thank today's speaker, Joe, for speaking with us today, and I want to again thank today's sponsor, Northrop Grumman. We have a short video from them, so stick around and enjoy, and have a great rest of your day.
Somewhere past the edge of convention,
beyond the boundaries of tomorrow,
lies a special kind of impossible.
A kind of impossible
Where pioneers forge ahead.
where no idea is too bold.
And no challenge too great.
Because making a 200-ton airplane disappear is impossible.
Until it's not.
Predicting cyber attacks before they happen is impossible.
Until it's not.
And solving the mysteries of the universe is impossible.
Until it's not. It's our job to break free from what is to what could be. Ready to leave the boundaries of what's known?
To define possible.
To define possible. To define possible.
To define possible.
To define possible.
To define possible.